Live stream. We are good. Got it. Keep dancing. Keep dancing. Keep dancing. Yeah, I like it. Here we go.
I'm trying to.
Jim, you got to do more than a wave.
No, I can do it too. I can do a double
Okay,
wave.
double wave.
I can't
right.
dance.
I squeezed a little bit more out of you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for rocking out, jamming with us, talking shop about real estate. This is our 55th double nickel 5-5 Chicago Real Producers Jam session. I'm just grateful to be sharing the screen with these individuals. And I just want to say we took a little hiatus all of August. It's a big travel month, kids, school. Not that I know anything about that, but I'm just very grateful that we have some new faces, some familiar faces. I say it's about 50-50, maybe 60-40 on here, if the math works out. But we are, the reason we run these is because when the pandemic hit, I had to find a way to keep people plugged in. And then realtors said, hey, that was really fun. I learned a lot. Hopefully I gave a lot of value. And then agents would say, I'd love to hop on another one in a month or two and get some different faces on there. And so this is sort of part of the platform, part of our jam, if you will. That was not scripted. I actually thought of that off the top of my head. But we do this just to put valuable information out into the ether, out into the world. And you know, it's kind of like a podcast with 5 rock star agents and usually 2 or 3 rock star partners. And so I'm gonna quit blabbing just so we can get into the meat and potatoes of this. I mean, we're about a week away from, I actually had to Google, when does fall officially begin? And I think it's like next week. So we're technically not in fall yet, but obviously the fall market is going to be a hot topic, and, you know, just sort of activities that you know, real producers are going to be doing. So I'm going to very briefly have the realtors introduce themselves first, quick 10-15 seconds each. Then I'll have the partners introduce themselves, and then I'm going to shut up and we're going to start jamming. So Amber, please kick us off.
Well, hi, I'm Amber Kardosh. I work with App Properties. I've been in real estate for about 6.5 years.
I'm Alley Ballard. I'm with App Properties. I've been selling real estate for 22 years and grateful to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Lothemer with App Properties. I manage a team of 7 agents within App Properties, the Lothemer group. And I also do rehab and development. Been in the business for 17 years.
I'm Cadey O'Leary with Jameson Sotheby's. I've been in the business for 8 years. Delighted to be here. Thanks.
Jim Barclay with Dreamtown. I got my license in 05, which means that my real estate license just learned how to drive last year. I've been in the business for 17 years.
Nice. I like that. Sweet 16. Well, hey, as the realtors, thank you for introducing yourselves. We pride ourselves on being a non-pay-to-play model for realtors. I know, I mean, all of the people you see that are featured in Chicago Real Producers put up the numbers, meaning they have great work ethic, but they also have great reputation, meaning they play nice in the sandbox with one another. We do them all on nominations and closed volume. And so by default, the physical publication goes to the top 500 agents in the city. And people always ask me, hey, do you guys have a digital version? And of course we do. However, it's private. So it's on an app. You have to download it. It's called Digipub. It is currently free still. Wherever you download apps, Apple Store, Google Play, DIGA, P as in Paul, U as in umbrella, B as in boy. And you can get it on your phone. I've been encouraging people. There's been chatter that they'll start charging either like a one-time download fee or maybe like a small nominal monthly fee. But if you have it on your phone, even if you never look at it, or your tablet, you'll be grandfathered in. And so as the realtors are great, what they do, I want to give the floor to our partners. I cannot do what I do. I'm essentially unemployed without our partners. I learned very quickly that there's no shortage of businesses that do not want to be top of mind with successful realtors. However, we want partners who support the platform to add a value and a service, you know, outside of just order taking. And so all the partners you see who we allow access to this are usually referred by 2, 3, half a dozen, sometimes a dozen realtors before they get connected with me. So Emma, I'm gonna have you introduce yourself, and then Mark, and then we're gonna start jamming.
Hi, I'm Emma Butler with Neighborhood Loans, and I'm a senior mortgage loan officer. And I've been in the business about 16, 17 years.
My name is Marc Cervantes. I'm a partner at Cervantes Chatt Prince. I'm a real estate attorney. I've been doing real estate commercially and residentially for 21 years.
Awesome. And this is where I be quiet. So middle of September, there's a lot to talk about. We haven't run one of these in 6 weeks. Let's start jamming. When we were, and I'll divert to you, Amber, because we were pregame and you sort of had some good topics. So I'll allow you to kick us off.
Sure. Yeah. So as we all know, the market's been crazy busy in different capacities, but I'm curious to talk about how all of you have felt across the board within the market. So from Logan Square to the North Shore to the Western Burbs, just trying to see if it's across the board. What are you guys seeing in terms of the craziness, the activity with different products?
Sure, I can go first. So I kind of work on the north side, like Andersonville I live, and I definitely work down into Lincoln Park and west to Logan and Bucktown, but I've been seeing more or less the type of property that is listed. You know, if it's highly sought after, or if it's a deal, quote unquote, it gets tons of activity. Back in, I would say, July, maybe beginning of July, there was a big slowdown in the markets that I work in, where I saw a lot of, there all of a sudden there was no mind for an open house. It was gone. And everybody had been talking about it. And so I always say that we learn things in the rearview mirror, so we're in the market in July and we're looking back at June going like, why aren't there people lining up? And that's what I had been kind of expecting with some sellers. So there were some sellers who were like sideswiped by that. And we have to acquiesce to the market. The market back in, what was it, February, March, April, May, June, was unrealistic to sustain.
Yeah. I mean, even now in places like, I do the city and near western suburbs, Oak Park, River Forest were like hot spots. People from the city were going there as a city-esque opportunity to get a single family home. And February to June was just so cutthroat. Like, I'm drinking water in between showings because it was just like a marathon. And you couldn't literally show a house to a buyer and you're like, all right, so you're going to make an offer because there's 5 waiting already. Like, it was just so insane. And so fast forward to now, the inventory is still relatively low. They're not huge areas, but I still feel like it's definitely a different market in those two specific examples than it was in the spring. And trying to talk through with sellers going, well, what do you mean? This thing sold multiple offers in March. And I was like, well, that was March. So curious to see, anybody feel that way in different areas in the city as well?
So I'm a big fan of InfoSparks for a lot of things, and I use it to speak directly to sellers about that very thing. I always point out that InfoSparks, it's not comps, it's trends, and you can look at a given area, 8006, 60618, whatever you want to do, and you can look at attached housing. And then you can filter it down and look at 1-bedrooms and see, the trends of what's the median sales price over the last year for all attached housing versus 1-bedrooms versus things below $200,000 versus things above, pick your number. And so you can kind of get a sense of how, like you say, there is no market. There are a bunch of little markets. There is a market for 1-bedroom condos. There's the market for single family homes in Portage Park. There's the market for high rises. So you can really kind of talk to seller expectations, I find, that way. And so when their seller says, and then also in terms of the seasonal market, you can go back, I've done this where I go back 10 years and pull up number of homes under contract. And if you do it, like every year you see this, it's a sawtooth. you know, and it always peaks in like May or maybe April, you know, maybe March, but it always peaks in the springtime. And it's like, you know, if you're putting your home on the market in September, you can't expect the kind of activity that your neighbor got back in April, because there is the data. That is the truth. It will not happen like that.
Yeah, Jim, I think that's super helpful to show the sellers those graphs, because then it's, you know, you're seeing the data, you're seeing the trend, you're seeing that like clearly, and that data is like usually like a month behind, I think.
Yeah,
so they do it monthly. So, you know, but it definitely gives you a better picture of what to expect in activity and just even like current inventory and demand, because it will give you like, you know, places under, you know, under contract, list to sell ratios. So that is probably a good way to kind of educate your sellers right now that are, you know, expecting their house to sell in one weekend and then disappointed when it doesn't, because the activity has slowed.
Yeah. And it's, you know, it's like, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, it does, we are looking backwards, you know, and sometimes depending on when you are in the month, it like, you know, it almost seems a little bit out of date. But then if you go back, you know, 10 years and look historically and go like, this is not an anomaly. This year is not like, it's going to be like every other year.
Every year in Chicago, it's like spring is the best time.
And the last, I mean, obviously the last 18, 20 months with COVID and the change in the market that started last May or June, and the unusual selling season we've had the last year and a half plays into this. But I do a lot in new construction and the upper market. You know, I'm selling the Orchard, which is a very high top market property in Lincoln Park, the new development. So same trends though, in terms of the spring, the winter. So January through May, June, a frenzied buying spree at the Orchard. We had 7 contracts in 60 days, and we're top. Our average price per foot is approaching $1,000 across the board at the Orchard. We're almost 50% sold, but even selling then properties at $500,000 resale, $400,000 resale that I thought was going to take a while to sell, maybe have a price drop. I had a ridiculous, like 3 or 4 offers back in, and that was a total timing thing back in February. It was a 2-bedroom condo. My clients did listen to me, and they did make cosmetic as well as some functional improvements. So I guess the point I would raise here too is I think new construction often drives pricing, drives market interest, and turnkey properties. I speak to my clients a lot in any market about HGTV ready, and you can either choose to do it or not. If you choose not to do it, your product is going to sit there. You know, and beg clients, you know, think of your condo as a single family home unit within a building. You got to make sure the building's in good shape, but on the lens of a buyer. So I think we're fortunate in ways in Chicago. I don't do a lot. I don't do anything in the suburbs, and I don't do a lot in the, you know, more affordable pricing single family homes. And that was a totally different market, and it still is. I mean, even median prices in Lincoln Park are up significantly, but you have to prepare the seller has to prepare their home for market. And it's a 20-year-old product, and it's a commoditized 3-bedroom duplex down product. They have to be realistic that in any market, it's only going to have a certain price threshold. And that's just the way it is in Chicago.
Yeah. You think that, you know, with the whole turnkey, and this is kind of what I'm seeing, you know, I have 1-bedrooms, even 2 1s or 2 2s in West Loop or, you know, the west side of the city that are total turnkey, like selling it within 2 weeks, but then that same product, say in, I don't know, Lincoln Park or Rogers Park or wherever, and you're seeing that opposite where it's total turnkey, but it's not moving. So I also feel like you've got that same product that maybe is not crappy, but it's okay. People don't want to do work because do you think that people still, even though supplies like material costs have gone down, people are still nervous that the price overall of a project is going to be completely out of the park compared to what it normally was, say, a year or 2 ago? I don't know.
I just think people don't want to spend time. I just
think buyers just want move-in condition. They don't want to have to deal with, you know, finding contractors is really hard, I think, right now, and everyone's super busy still. So I feel like that piece of it, as well as just managing a project, people would rather, I think, pay a little bit more for something that's turnkey. So,
And they would need additional, cash flow as well for
Right.
doing renovations.
Yeah.
A lot of people, if they're, buying condos, there's a lot of first-time home buyers and, they've been saving up, they have their down payment, but they may not be able to, fork in the money to do the renovations as well, because it can get costly.
So
It can, yeah.
do you, that being said, I've had a handful of buyers that were trying to get home equity line of credit, like, to do renovation loans. Are you seeing that a lot at all, or?
Yeah, there's, if they already own the home, adding on a home equity line of credit, we've done a few of them. Yeah, I try to have connections with other lending institutions, that I can offer as a resource. We don't necessarily do them in-house at Neighborhood Loans, but we do have relationships with banks that offer home equity lines of credit. So I've had a few clients who have decided, hey, I'm not going to sell my home, right? The market's too intense. I can't find another place to buy. It's too hard. I can't do it. And instead they're going to put an addition on their home. So we'll look at, okay, should we refinance the first and take cash out? Should we add on a home equity line of credit? A lot of the times doing a renovation, if you're doing a renovation line of credit, might be the way to go because you can use the money gradually. So I've done a few of those this year just because it was just too hard for them to buy another place, or it was too expensive for them to buy another place. It didn't make sense to do.
Yeah, and to your point, I've had clients who have looked into renovations and now they're doing, it has gone from adding an addition that may have been 250 to 300,000 a few years ago, and now it's like 450. And then they're like, whoa, the price of the home doesn't equate to the price of the addition.
Right.
And so they end up trading up. But to your point, it is, especially if you have clients coming from the city to the burbs, the burb market or the suburban market, at least on the North Shore, it's been tight, so.
And I don't know, have any of you seen where anyone, if anyone has you're doing a renovation loan to purchase, I don't know if anyone even accepted a 203K offer in this market. I haven't heard of anybody, there's I don't even know if you guys get it done in a reasonable time frame with trying to get a contractor either.
yeah.
No,
the
203K loan. No,
yeah,
no.
sellers aren't willing to take those
nobody
types of
is
loans
willing
right now.
to. So right, so you have to have the money yourself in order, to do it.
Have you guys been still pushing your concierge services? Because I know a couple of years ago, especially App Properties and other brokerages, you guys had concierge services, but with supply chain disruption, with material cost increases, are you guys still pushing that? So people need a refresh on their units. Are you guys? I haven't seen one in probably about a year.
I still recommend for my clients to make strategic updates before they list. Yeah.
Me too, but
I don't necessarily use one of the services. Right. I usually just have them use one of my, trusted contractors. I work with a lot of contractors, so I have those relationships. Mm-hmm. And I still definitely think that it's worth their while to invest some money up front in just, small things like paint, maybe even changing out some hardware, fixtures, lighting, and doing staging at a minimum to maximize their list price.
Elizabeth, what do you do in terms of development? You mentioned when you were introducing yourself that you manage a team, an impressive team of 8, but then also do development projects on the side. What are you personally involved in, and what's on the docket going into fall?
So I started just renovating condos back in 2007. Just started with one condo. Started doing some condo flips, worked up to doing several single family homes, and then kind of got back into, I really like doing the condos more so because they're just kind of quick, easy, cosmetic type projects. And the market has obviously shifted quite a bit for me to be able to find properties where the numbers work, because the cost of the property is way higher. There's not a lot of foreclosures or short sales anymore like there was in the past. And B, the cost of construction has increased significantly. So it has been harder for me to find properties, and the margins are a little bit tighter, but I've still been able to find either, you know, I found a couple of like estate sales, distressed sales, or just properties that like haven't been touched in 20 plus years. So that's what I've been doing, you know, in addition to the brokerage stuff. But
and I may add, you do an excellent job.
Oh, well, thank you, Allie.
Yeah, I've had clients buy your property and they love it.
With that, I do have a lot of, you know, expertise on just what it's going to cost for my sellers to make these strategic improvements, and know like, hey, if you put in X amount of dollars, you're going to get this return when you go to list it, and it's going to sell a lot faster.
Yeah.
So I'm able to kind of offer that as an added service onto the sellers and the clients that I facilitate with that. So.
What are people seeing in fall? You know, here we are, you mentioned, Andy, at the beginning that we're a week away or so from fall market. We've all experienced, I think all of us can say, you know, aversely that we've experienced a slowdown in the market since June. You know, I certainly have. It was a welcome slowdown for a month or so. You kind of catch your breath and start looking and planning for what 2022 looks like. What are you seeing, I guess, as you move into fall in terms of listing volume, buyer activity?
I can say from the real estate, the law world, in the last 2 weeks, I've just received 36 new contracts. And that doesn't include, because I do new construction as well. I've got a couple of projects there. I got a 4-flat that's ready for delivery in about a month. And then I've got a townhome project that I'm just finishing up my declaration. We're gonna, all those were pre-sales, sold out in 2 weeks, but 36 single family or
how does that compare to your, let's say, April volume or March volume?
Good question.
My April volume was double that, my May volume, but I mean, I hit my record of number of closed deals in June of this year over 21 years. So everything after June is more than I've ever done in a year, because normally we close on average between 330 to 360 deals. We're going to be over 700 this year.
Yes, right. Okay. Just kind of getting a sense. You're still about 50% of where you were in the peak of the market we all experienced. Okay.
That's a good question.
And I feel that like in the last August, it's always, I feel it's always slower. Like everybody is away. Even people that are under contract, I feel like no one is really like there. You know what I mean? I'm like, come on, we need this stuff. We need to close. Like people are just, they don't have their head in the game. They're just like, they're checked out. They're enjoying summer. But I have noticed in the since mid last week, the end of last week, applications starting to come in for people getting pre-approved and people calling the phone, like just over the weekend, yesterday and Friday. So they're starting to come back out, you know, and, you know, I have a big like lead tracker and I'm trying to like follow up with the people from the spring market that decided this is not fun. You know, I thought buying a home would be fun. You know, I was bored. I thought it would be fun. And then they get out there and they're like, oh yeah, this is so intense, right?
This is not fun.
It's not fun. It was so intense. And I mean, you're kind of laughing. I'm like, so I warn you, okay, you may not get it the first time around, you know, looking for a single family home around 450. I'm like, okay. So, you know, I said, just stay at it. Okay. You'll get there in the end. And, you know, they decided, okay, maybe we don't want to do this. Maybe we weren't that bored after all. But, you know, we're hoping to get some of those people back out and let them know, hey, it's calmed down, right? You can come outside again. And I think we should all do that because I think they're so worried that it's the same environment. And it was very intimidating for first-time home buyers. It wasn't fun.
Yeah, you know, I'll piggyback on what Emma just said. Like, I mean, me personally, like just within my sphere, anyone that talks to me about it, I'm like, you know, now's a good time. If you're looking to buy, now is the time to do it. Like, I think we all kind of have this somewhat of a herd mentality of like, you know, people want to buy in the springtime, and obviously they have the reasons for that. But I'm like, now's when you can kind of, if there is a deal to be had, it's probably going to be in the next 4 months.
For sure.
Yeah, and I also think, sorry to interrupt you, but I also think like during June, July, and August, a big driver of the slowdown was vaccinations and vacations. So everybody was right, like people got vaccinated. They're like, I'm going to go visit family. I'm going to go do, and now people are coming back, and the market, I believe this fall is going to be really strong. But as we heard from the attorney, like this year has been, like it was bananas. Like, I mean, our team sold what last year we closed 31 million, 2020, this year in July, we had 32 million closed. Like, I was like, in 7 months. So it's like kind of the same thing. You're just like, oh my God. But, to Jim's point, like I always tell clients who are, they're not born for the market, meaning like they get scared. I'm like, wait until the winter. Just wait.
Yeah.
Everything will be okay.
Right.
Yeah. So what do you tell your sellers, the people that are either inquiring about listing right now or maybe are listed right now? How do you tell your sellers what's the counterpoint to that?
Yeah, interesting. So it depends on the property. It depends on what we're priced at. It depends on what their comfort level is in terms of when they want to sell. There's so many different answers to that question, but I can tell you one really interesting kind of, I have a townhome on in Lincoln Park. It's really a row home, so it's a single family home, but and the last one closed. I think Elizabeth was the broker on it. It was nice. Yeah, Bissell.
On the train side?
Yep. And we're priced $75,000 below you. And we have a garage area in the back.
Oh, bonus.
And it's a very small garage.
Well,
it's
I know.
Mini.
I know how the parking situation is over there.
Yeah.
But is it as updated as my sellers did it completely? It's
not, and it has 1.5 baths. But it's a white kitchen. It's a beautiful place. I mean, beautiful, but we've had probably 25 showings, and my client keeps going back to your closing, and I'm like, well,
you're like, that was a different
market. Yeah. But I'm like, let's give it one more shot, and we're gonna blow it out of the park marketing wise. So in answer to Jim's question, it's like, I try and try and try, and my client sees that we're trying. And then I say, okay, we got to listen to the market.
Yeah.
And then we start looking at, what other things, like, during that time, I'm looking at what other things are closing for, but sometimes it's hard.
And I feel like that is just like, has to be a particular buyer that can overlook the train too. So
100%. Yeah.
One of the things I think is worth keeping in mind, we were speaking about this again in our prep, is, at least in my experience, when the market was so frenzied in winter and spring of 2021, when we had, quote, multiple offers in the city, I'm not speaking about the suburbs, in the city, in a either trade up or first time home purchase of 400 to 800,000, I was experiencing from the list side, at the end of the day, maybe a price over contract of 2 to 3%. So, I think sometimes our sellers buy in, and we all buy into, oh my gosh, the market's on fire, and these, listings. You might have someone willing to pay $15,000 over list. But what I found, even in those circumstances, especially when there was the standard mortgage contingency, they're not going to waive an appraisal. These aren't cash buyers coming in Chicago. So if you have a product and you've updated it, it's fairly turnkey, but it's a 20-year-old product or an 18-year-old product, it's going to have a certain, top price, and someone pays to get it, or you think it's going to go for $435 and it goes for $450. but subject to an appraisal and it appraises out, wonderful. Still just 15,000 over, it's, over ask. It's a fairly nominal amount that can be absorbed or amortized over the course of someone's 6 years in the home and in a, low rate on a 30-year mortgage. So I still think it's still, as much as, the market was quote on fire, we're still above. The median price point is still, in most recent data, higher, and even in given neighborhoods, than it was a year ago or 2 years ago. So it's still a great time to list. It's still a phenomenal time to list. You prepare your home, you price it to sell within the market it is, and it's going to move.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Multiple offers as much as spring.
Pardon me?
I feel like multiple offers have gone down a bit since spring.
Yeah.
Are you guys?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, I feel like it feels like a more normal cycle of the market right now, when like typically in Chicago, it's like July and August are always slow. So I think we saw that slowdown. We saw it go through June, which usually the slowdown kind of happens in June once like summer hits, but it kind of went through June, and then July and August were pretty slow. And now we're seeing that uptick again, but not as crazy as like the spring.
I think I tell my clients, anyone who's listening, I tell them, I earn my money. I make my money in the springtime, but I earn my money in the fall. That like the fall is
sticker worthy.
Yeah, this is when we really like double down on our value, whether it's really accurate pricing, just like really drilling down on like, okay, this is what the market's going to do this fall, and like kind of predicting, and like it's not here, it's here, price it realistically, and doing all those things like Elizabeth, you were saying, like making sure the home is just absolutely spotless, ready to go, staging it if you have to, doing a staging consult if you have to, because there aren't as many buyers out there. It's not necessarily that the seller wants to take a big price hit to list in the fall, so you need to make it the bell of the ball, so to speak.
Speaking about what Cadey was saying on the
if a seller comes to you and they want to list their home, and they want to list it for something that's completely not what it's going to sell for, and that is the case, is it something where you will have a conversation with them, say, look, we'll do this for 30 days, or will you say, look, I'm just not going to list it at this, it's going to bring down my market time? Like, how do you go about having that conversation with unrealistic sellers?
It depends on the relationship. If it's a new, my business is personal referral, past clients, but I think most of us here are in that same situation. We're relationship-based agents. But if it's a new relationship and they have unrealistic expectations, I have said, I think you would be better served by someone else. And leave it there, because there's some people you can't, you're not going to convince them. And is it worth it? In some cases, if it's somebody who it might be a little bit ahead of the market, hey, you're ahead of the market, we can test this. I know, Jim, you brought up, let's talk about private listing and or top agent and or, some of these other off-market services. And if no one is biting at all, that's giving us some indication that we're ahead of the market and get some feedback. You might try that channel. That's kind of how I approach it.
I've been doing that too, especially with sellers who, I understand people want what they want for their house, and you can walk away. And I think, I've gotten to that point where it's like, I don't think I'm the right agent for you. But I've also found using the PLN and not putting a price for a little bit on it. Yeah, you're probably missing the Zen list people, which I guess we could talk about that next, about the third party search thing. But, having people come see it, and you have a range, like a large range, like if your buyer can afford X, come see it. And then we get price feedback. And if we get enough, I've had sellers like go, oh, okay, well, maybe it's not worth that. So you don't have to like jump off the listing or like not take the business, but you're trying to work with them to make them understand. You can give them info sparks, the trends, all the things. When you have those sellers are just going to be like, well, I don't have to sell, I'll wait. And then you continue to educate them.
Well, why are you calling me? Then don't call me.
Are you guys still seeing a lot of like low appraisals, or do you think the market has now caught up?
Well, I would say 1 in 5 of my deals, I wrote 2 appraisal letters yesterday, and it's not in, it's yesterday was a South Loop letter I wrote. Another one was Old Irving Park. Another one was West Loop. So it's all over. It's not just one area. I'm seeing it more in condos than I am in single family homes or townhomes, but they range from maybe a couple $1,000s to sometimes $40,000. But what we saw earlier in the summer was multiple bid situations. An appraiser looks at the last couple of comps. They said, well, the last comp was $20,000 less than your contract price, but they don't take into account the hot market and that there was 10 backup buyers for that same property. Now it's just, I had one for a South Loop building, 1111 South Wabash. There's 10 other units for sale. So my buyers are just going to say, if you're not going to take the appraised price, then we're just going to go buy one of the other units. So we're seeing a little bit of that. But when I'm on the sell side, it's how bad do you want to sell it? Or a lot of people have already moved. They just want to get rid of it. But then the agents have to look at the bigger picture. They're like, we don't want to destroy the comps for the rest of the building. So there's a lot of push and pull on it, but they also have to advocate for what their clients want to do. So it's somewhat difficult because if they're farming a building and it's 200 units, you don't want to set that low comp. So there's a lot of discussion with regards to it, but you also have to do what's in the best interest of your client.
That's interesting. I don't think I've had appraisal issues at all.
I had several appraisal issues in the spring, but I haven't recently. So I'm hoping that the comps have now set, appraisals are now catching up to what has sold.
And Emma, you can speak as to the appeals process. I mean, have you been successful in any of the appeals that you've done on any of these?
Yeah, I've had a handful of appraisals come in low, especially earlier on in the season with some of the single family homes out in the suburbs, but not so much in the condo market, to be honest with you. I haven't noticed that too much. But, I have had some success with it. I need the help of the agents in order to present the information. I've had real attorneys that appraisers that just will not budge, and there's a lot that goes into the appraisal report. And then there's also the SSR reports, you know what I mean? And certain flags and things that they can't use certain comps, or the adjustments are going to be too great, so it's not just the value that is listed on the report. When I look at it, there's additional information that I look at to see the quality of the appraisal too. So you really just need to know yourself, but you have to have the information. If the comps aren't there and it's not supported, but there's other things to look at. Okay, was a property sold and it sold for the same price as this one, but they had a $10,000 credit. Did you take that into consideration? You know what I mean? It's not and more seasoned realtors will know these things, but the newer agents will not know it. The basement, it's not finished compared to this one here. The living space is different. There's a lot of things, and some people, some agents don't see that, so they think that the value might be the same when it's not, when the appraiser is actually comparing it. But I have had some success. I've had some success. I've also had some failure.
Appraisals we could talk about. That's a whole separate jam session.
I want to get too technical.
It's funny you guys I think Amber, you brought it up. We did 2 sessions like a couple months ago just on the PLN. The title of the session was like pros and cons of the PLN, and it was great. So we could do there's a bunch out there. Before I forget, let me get a screenshot of everybody smiling. All right, hold on. And now I'll preface it with this. Mark, you've heard this joke 3 times, so you have to laugh as if you heard it the first time. Okay. Do not be like my children and smile for 2 seconds and then stop. So here's the rule of thumb. When you see me stop smiling, then you can stop smiling. Okay. Are you ready? This may or may not make it in the next issue of Real Producers. All right, ready? 2, 3, smile. All right. Hold on. Hold on.
Are we still signing?
I think we nailed it.
I'm like,
Let's do one more. That one's actually good.
Are we doing it or no?
We can do
more?
one more. Sure, why not? Yeah, ready? 2, 3. All right.
Are we doing?
And if you ever want if you do want an RP branded mug, I know a guy. So
I'll take one.
private message me. There you go. But no, I love the conversation. I mean, we've got what, probably 10, maybe 12, 13 minutes.
So I would like people's thoughts on Zenlist. Of course, I work. I don't do a lot of like buyer volume, and my price point's a little higher or whatever, but I paid the whatever $300 or $400 to Zenlist. I just filled out the survey on MRED about your thoughts on private listing. I never really used private listing until more recently. I've always used Top Agent, but I've done it more because it's like everyone else is doing it. I felt like it was used a lot more in the suburbs, and I don't do business out there. So bought in, looking at private listings, sending buyers listings, both private listing as well as on the active MLS. But yeah, I would love people's thoughts on how effective they think Zenlist has been for their business as well as private listing.
I love Zenlist. Like, love it. Like, and I'm buyer and seller heavy. Like, I mean, like both, it's 50-50, but I feel like the value of Zenlist for our team is when we give a buyer the Zenlist invite, they can search on their own.
Yeah.
They're not texting me every 5 minutes. They see what's private. Amber said something really interesting. I do think the no price thing is a huge conversation starter. Even when my clients look at something, they know damn well they can't afford it. Like, it'd be like an Environ's house. You're like, what? But you're looking for a $500,000 condo on the north side. But it still starts that conversation. And that conversation is important to determine value and like what is realistic and what isn't,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think Zenlist was a good thing this spring, but also a bad thing, because I feel like the private listing in the past was a great tool to be like, oh, look what I found for you. But because so many brokerages have access to Zenlist, it's almost like the private was active without accruing market time. So even though you got your client into a private listing, they're like, yeah, we got 5 offers, or you're like, and I feel like that was more often the case this spring than before I've seen it before. So it wasn't like wow factor, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, is it really private if it's accessible? It's like, what's private about it?
Yeah, right.
It just doesn't have as much information.
This is not private.
Yeah, right. Like it's all for the public to see if they're on the right portal.
You could make the argument that this is private because my Facebook profile is private, but I think I actually set the settings so it's public. So, but yeah, I agree with you. That's a great question, Katie.
Like now, I
still like, I don't know. Like I have a client I've worked with, and I was a referral. He goes away. He's a nice kid. He's renting something in Logan Square and he's a first time buyer. So I just set him up this morning on, it's one of these things. Oh, I want to buy a 2-bedroom condo in Logan Square or a 2-flat or single family home in Rogers Park. I'm like, naturally. And so you do different things. You give someone, like there's certain people, and especially, I'm saying this sounds stereotypical, but like sometimes a married couple, woman, she's going to be on Zenlist and she's setting her search criteria and they're coming, and it's great because you can see and interact with them. Wow, she's on that all the time. There's a lot of activity. With a guy, it's almost like sometimes you want to, for lack of a better term, kind of keep control of the process as much as possible in order to be the advisor. And so they're not out there creating all these different searches or what have you, that you're kind of helping them focus on what you believe is a product based on what they say as their must-haves. So you have all these different, I've got you on MLS, you're getting that, and now here's Zenlist, and now, it's hard to kind of keep track and have a more of a system, if you will. And that's just some thoughts.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Like I tell my buyers, like, I'm here to help you make a good decision. That's my value statement. That's my job here. Yes, I will open doors. Yes, I will negotiate a contract. But at the end of the day, you are hiring me, you know, as your agent to help you make a good decision, because I've been doing this for a long time and I've seen a bunch of things that you won't have. And I do, and like, yes, I love the bells and whistles of Zenlist, and I love, you know, I get that people want to kind of modify their own searches and do stuff like that, but I do feel like that gets sacrificed. Like I am less of an advisor when they can do all that themselves. You know, what I used to say about Connect MLS is the bad part about Connect MLS is you can't create your own searches or modify them. You have to come to me and ask me to change them, but that's a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, we need to have that communication. If you say, hey, let's go ahead and bump the price point up $25,000, like, okay, that's good. I need to know that. We need to talk about what that looks like with your lender, maybe, you know, and I do feel like it kind of circumnavigates that whole conversation.
Yeah, but I feel like buyers can still go on, you know, Redfin and Zillow.
Yeah.
Do that as well. And then it's like you have all these, like, it's like they're getting MLS and then they're also going on. I think Zenlist helps to just keep it in one place for
it keeps it tight.
Allows them to do the search that they're still going to want to do on these other platforms, but then lets you see what they're looking at as
and
well.
they're not calling Redfin brokers to see stuff, which I'm like, if you call a Redfin broker to see something, I will kick your ass.
Allie, ass is fine. We can say ass. We do have to keep it PG-13 though. So if you go rated R, but ass is, that's fine.
I'm
we
out.
can say that.
Wait till you see the pictures that we took for the Real Producers magazine, Andy. You're not going to be happy.
It put a big grin on my face, Allie. You guys, that's a different conversation. But you guys,
that was rated X.
You made it. You made it your own. It's Real Producers.
To see
what are you gonna do, right?
Just wait. It's gonna be interesting.
I want to ask this because Jeffrey Zerikat, who I believe is with Compass, not that really matters or anything, asked a question on the feed, and so I want to get to this because we're I don't know 10 minutes out here. Is anyone having issues with the new property assessment values coming out at ridiculous valuations, i.e. 100% plus increases over the previous assessed value? I'm seeing a lot in West Loop, Fulton Market, and River West. Mark, you were gonna chime in and take that, man. Go for it.
So when my agents get contracts, the biggest issues normally are inspection items, right? We fight over inspection items left and right. But this year, since 2021 was a triennial reassessment year for the city of Chicago, this issue has come up in every single attorney review letter. So the agents I normally work with, I tell them if they're on the buy side, put TBD for the taxpirations. Because, you know, if you ask somebody 5 years ago, you know, what should a taxpiration be in the city of Chicago, it'd be anywhere between 105 to 110. That does not apply this year for a couple of factors. One, 2020, Fritz Cadey did a blanket reduction of assessed values for all Cook County properties. So everybody looks at the assessed values for 2020 and they say, well, it should be reduced. And what lay people don't understand is just because there's a reduction in your assessed value doesn't mean there's going to be a reduction in your property tax, because property taxes are calculated by multiplying assessed value times the state equalization factor times your local tax rate. So
it's just such a, sorry, I just find it so ridiculously, it's deliberately obtuse and I find it morally offensive, but go ahead, please.
I agree with you. So what 2021 did though, since it's a triennial reassessment year, so only 2 townships have come out so far, West Chicago and Rogers Park. So what we're seeing in West Chicago is the viewer said is that's Fulton Market area, that's West Loop, they're doubling. So they're taking into account the reduction that Kagi did for 2020. They're taking that back and then adding more. So we're fighting on every single contract that I have regarding taxpirations. When an attorney says, I want 110 and on the sell side, and I say, look, taking all this into account, I know your sellers want to be done with this, but I don't want to get a phone call from my clients next year saying, you only gave me X amount in credit. I have to put up another $4,000 of my own money. So what we've been doing in our office is, it's more work for us, which we don't charge for, is we take an escrow. If we can come together, we'll say, look, give us 110 at the table. And then let's figure out, like I just literally before this Zoom, I said, we agreed on 138%. So I said, we'll take the other 28%, we'll put it in escrow. When 2021 second installment comes out next year at this time, we're going to true up. It's more work for everybody, but then there's no windfall. Everybody has in their mind that they want to just be done when the transaction's done. But when you're talking about several $1,000s, like on a $2 million property, I don't want that headache. I don't want malpractice. So we said, look, the best way to do it is to escrow it. If sellers want to be quote unquote done, then give me the 138%. And
we could also tell buyers and sellers not to pay the tax or pay the tax they paid in 2020 and let the city come after hundreds of thousands of people. I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I think it's morally offensive. You know, the budget's established and no other business you say, oh, listen, to my seller this year, you know what? I've always charged you 3 points to sell your home or whatever. But you know what? I've decided I need to buy a couple new houses and some new wardrobes and go on 4 trips. So I'm going to charge you 28% to my client. You know, that's what the city does. Oh, and if it's not good enough, you can fight it and get your money 10 months from never down the road. I just
10 months from never.
I have a strong opinion, as you can tell, with city taxes. I think it's, you know, they've got us by the balls, and I hope that's PG-13. And I find
it's not just city, it's like Cook County. It's like Cook County.
Sure,
it's like,
Cook
and people are getting carjacked and people are getting
Yeah.
held at gunpoint and people, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm as liberal as they come, but this stuff has to stop because I'm a homeowner, I'm an investor, and I invest where I live. And some of my clients have had their taxes go through the roof. And Katie, all due respect, like, you know, my highest sale price is like 2 million. So we're in a different league. Like I'm in a lower league than you, which is fine. My volume might be higher, but like some of these people are paying, the house becomes unsaleable.
They can't afford it.
You can't afford it. It's like, what the?
Your taxes go up from, I'm paying $16,000. My average transaction size is 1.4 million. Now, I mean, so because the orchard and higher end, but no, so I do that. But there's a big difference. You have a buyer and you know, you have a difference. You have $1 million home or what have your taxes are 20,000. And if they come in and you have to pay the 28,000, it's reprehensible. So you buy something, you think your taxes is and oh, you'll get your money back. Just pay the 10 attorneys who make $10 bazillion, you know, fighting this. It's all just it's offensive. And then and what value add, you know? And so trust me, we're all on the same page. Whatever your politics, it's
interesting because interest rates go up, values of homes go down, our taxes go up, our values go up, and now new construction. Like I'm telling people, I'm like, look, you might be paying 2.5%. Like, and they're like, and I'm like, yeah. And they're always like, wait, isn't it 1.5? I'm like, not anymore.
Not anymore.
Like you have to really include that. And I mean, I'm pissed because my taxes are ridiculous. I'm paying taxes on a house and a 4 flat. I mean,
yeah, it's crazy. Are you guys seeing that it's really affecting like the buyers that you're working with and their affordability and
higher priced homes? Yeah,
in 6
absolutely.
months, yes. And when this comes out and people see this right now,
I don't know if I can afford this.
We had that reprieve for a year. The market heated up. People are buying. When people receive their tax bills in 6 months to a year, they're going to be freaking out. So I think, Andy, this should be something that I think you can say, but it might be worthwhile to really have a separate discussion on this to say, how can we help our clients prepare for Armageddon? And that's not the title, but It's gonna be,
Oh,
it's gonna be.
I can have my design team do some Armageddon graphic.
mean,
I already got like
Dun, dun, dun.
fireballs.
When you're
can have
out
some
of
fun.
pocket, when you're out of pocket
Yeah.
costs, even if you're a cash buyer, whatever, you're out of pocket costs in a city that is struggling socioeconomically and with crime, and we don't feel safe, and you're going from, you know, $40,000 a year to taxes to $57,000, $17,000 more. You know, it's a real problem. And or you take 16,000 to 28,000, or these jumps that are just astronomical. Yeah, but pay it, and then maybe you'll get your money back.
Also, Cook County pays all the damn taxes, pardon my French, but all the taxes for Illinois. I mean, like Illinois, you go outside of Cook County and you're like, these taxes aren't bad. It's like Chicago is the hub for the
Paying
tax
for everyone
stuff.
else. But
Yes.
we're not receiving the benefits of paying
No.
the higher tax. Yeah.
None.
I do some
My
like
tax bill
out of
and I say
state.
It's for school. It's for school. It's for school. It helps my sanity. That's kind of what I
But
Yeah,
many
and
of
the
the
schools suck.
Yeah,
Okay, well,
that's
Sorry.
right.
mine don't, but
Some don't. Some
Yeah.
do.
I just
Some do.
get through it.
I'm gonna take my vitamins now.
It's immoral. That's gonna be my topic of the day. Is gonna be around. It's outrageous. It's immoral. But I
Call me,
maintain
girl.
that
Let's
position.
bitch.
Mark, going back
No.
to what
I
you
do
said
some
about
out of
acting
state
up.
purchases and
What was Amber saying?
No, I was saying
Yeah,
to wrap
go
up
ahead,
this
Amber.
whole, obviously tax is a sore subject, so I know we are running out of time, but like, Mark, you were saying that you were doing 138% and escrowing a lot. I think that's the last 5 deals that were in the West Loop Fulton market recently, and that's how we've had to concede, because there was a lot of back and forth pushback. And I never put a percentage on the contracts because of that reason, because I don't want to be the person to determine what percentage is given on either side. You know what I mean? It's like, no, you're
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah, I mean, the escrow route is the most fair route to, you know, then it's like you're paying what the bill is instead of just guessing what it's gonna be.
Agreed.
Mark, when somebody does when someone does a TI, so I had a client and they did a TI, and it was there was apparently a senior and a homeowner's exemption, right? Which the second installment wasn't out yet. So when the tax bill came out, there was no senior exemption, there's no TI. The client got like only for her proration, she got maybe a $250 tax credit, right? From the prorations from the seller. And the amount that she gave to the title company and the TI was based on the previous bills, which were senior with homeowners. So what happens in that situation? Now she's stuck with this large bill to pay that belongs to the sellers, that doesn't have a senior or that doesn't have a homeowner's exemption. There was no separate escrow set up. Will the title company come back to her and ask her for the money, or is it like, sorry?
So it depends on so when we run into situations like that, there's a couple of different ways we handle it. One, we say, if it's a senior exemption, we want proof that whatever the exemption is going to carry over for the following year. If it doesn't carry over for a following year, then we want money in escrow. If the sellers refuse to do an escrow, then we indemnify ourselves, and then we'll have to sue the other side. Nobody wants to sue. Nobody has the money to sue. So then it comes to me having a conversation with the buyers, like, this is the issue. How badly do you want this house? If you're willing to take it on subject to this issue, then we can close. Otherwise, I'm telling you, you need an escrow, or we move on. And one other thing regarding exemptions, I wanted to just share. So the assessor's office is now hitting up a lot of my clients for homeowners exemptions. And what the statute says is, with regards to homeowners exemptions, if there is an improper homeowner exemption and I buy a property from the person that's doing that improper homeowners exemption, I am liable as the buyer. So we have a deal right now, 10 years of improper homeowners exemptions. Sellers won't, and it's going to come out to over $10,000. And
Oh, God.
the assessor has a team of people that are going through all their files, looking for these and sending out letters. And I'm telling this buyer, look, either we get $10,000 from the seller, or you're supposed to self-report. So, or they have to go to the assessor's office and say, I've had 10 years of exemption that I shouldn't have. So we're making them pay it. If they don't pay it, we're asking for an indemnity. If they're not willing to do that, same conversation. hey buyer, we know about this, seller's not willing to do it. Are you still willing to move forward with the closing? I've had some deals canceled. Other ones, buyers are like, I need this property because my rental is going to be done. I'll just deal with it if I get caught.
Okay.
We're on time. I don't want to be respectful of everybody. So everybody's scheduled. So I'm going to cut the live, and I think so. And then I'll talk to you guys privately. So 3, 2, 1, cutting the live feed right now. All right. That was great. And I mean, there was a lot of stuff that was flushed out there. So if you have interest, I try to keep these loose in the sense of we call them jam sessions, because if you kind of pick a topic, then you have to rap about that. However, if there's enough information that can take a 45-minute time block on a certain topic, I'm game. Like I am totally cool with putting these together. So I appreciate everybody's passion. These are great. So if you are interested in getting on another one of these, I know Elizabeth is your second one. I think everybody else is their first, except Mark. You know, I'm happy to shuffle the deck, get some different agents, different partners on here. But I'll let you go. Sell real estate. Have a productive rest of your day.
Thanks so much, everybody. Appreciate your
Thanks,
time.
guys.
That's great. Thank you.
I'll see you guys on October 8th at the event. Peace out.
Yeah,
Thanks.
looking forward to
Bye,
it.
guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.